Hello everyone and welcome to Mistakes Were Made. We are here at the dining room table and we are about to do our budget recap for the second pay period in June, which covers the 16th through the 30th. All right, I'm not going to gild the lily any. We're just going to jump right in. So let's take a look. Zooming in. Okay, so no changes with Mr. M's pay. We already knew what the amount would be when we did our budget with me, simply because of the timing of his paycheck. Whereas with mine, we did use the kind of generic expected lowest amount that I should get paid each pay period, because with how my paychecks fall, if we're lucky, we might see it in the account as a pending transaction. It just kind of depends when we're doing, the timing of when we do the budget with me's. This time we were a little bit earlier, so there was neither hide nor hair of that paycheck yet. So we did that. What we weren't sure about was whether I would be eligible for the incentive that I had been eligible for as a supervisor with the promotion to manager. I am happy to report that apparently I am still eligible for that. So the pay ended up being $2,475.95. No miscellaneous income, but we did have a little bit of sales on the Etsy side, and that came to $7.18. We have our buffer rollover, which from the first pay period, again, we weren't going to be able to know exactly what that would be because we had to wait for the May pay period to clear, or no, the June, sorry, the first pay period of June to clear to know what these cents would be, and that ended up being $200.87. So let's add all that together, and we've got $2306.83 plus $2475.95 plus $718 plus $200.87. And that brings us to a total income for the pay period of $4,990.83. Now I'm trying really, really hard to make sure that I don't make any goofs, whether it's with what I'm writing down or what I'm calculating with the calculator, because if you saw the last video, there were some issues. By the way, if this is the first video of ours you are seeing, welcome. I hope it is interesting, and if you want to get to know kind of our journey, where we started from, please consider checking out our debt confession video. It came out when I first created this channel back in October of 2023, and the channel was created basically out of trauma. We had some very, very bad news, and we weren't really sure what the future would hold. And quite frankly, we still don't exactly know what the future is going to hold, but we are 100% in a much better mindset and situation than we were back in October. So maybe well worth your time to kind of see our origin story and see where we started and where we are now. And of course, for those of you who have watched some of our videos in the past, whether it's from the very beginning, which I know there are a number of you, or are more recently becoming familiar with the channel, welcome back. I really, really appreciate you guys keeping track of us, encouraging us, seeing what we're doing. And if you're just watching and haven't subscribed, please consider doing that as well. One thing that I did notice is I think we are at 798 subscribers. Hello. Who would have expected that? Not me. I assure you of that. So anybody that wants to make themselves be known as a subscriber, we are 100% for that and very much appreciate your time, whether you subscribe or not. Okay, Now we're going to look at expenses or bills. Because we are working in the second pay period, we have the items up here marked off because they fall during the first pay period. Didn't really have any changes with the numbers that we had budgeted. We have our second of 2 mortgage payments of $875. We also have our utilities, the $158.36, which, ouch, of electric bill, the much nicer $46.55 for the gas bill. Then our internet is $101. The only difference we do have is with our phone bill, and that was actually $89.62, so not that far off. And so now we are going to add these together. 875 plus 158.36 plus 46.55 plus 101 plus 89.62. All right, and that comes to a total of $1,270.53. And now we're going to subtract that from our total income, which was $4,990.83, and that leaves us with a remaining income of $3,720.30. Next up is savings. So we are in the second pay period, so we are going to, or we have done a transfer for our emergency fund of $25. And just in case there were any confusion, we do have a separate emergency fund from our savings cushion. So this was really our first main goal that we did when we very first got started, because when we were doing our research, practically everybody was saying you need to have an emergency fund of $1,000. So that's what we did. We made sure we had that in place. Now, my understanding is that primarily from the Dave Ramsey method. Maybe there are other people before or around the same time as him who advocated having some kind of fund for emergencies, but I think it's very heavily attributed to him. And from what I understand, because we do not follow the Dave Ramsey process really at all. There are little pieces that we take and utilize for how we do our budget, but we're definitely not following his steps and all of that. So anything that seems similar is definitely coincidence. But from what I understand, that $1,000 is intended to be an initial start, and then you are supposed to go through some certain steps and meet certain requirements, and then you go back and start to bulk that emergency fund up. And I will say that to me that makes sense, because really, especially these days, I don't feel like $1,000 is nearly enough to be able to adequately cover many emergencies. Is it a goal that's worthwhile meeting? Absolutely. I don't think you can go wrong with having $1,000 set aside to help should something go wrong. Where I think it's unfortunate, and it is what it is that I don't think it goes as far as it might have in the past. So we do have an ultimate goal of getting a year's worth of our expenses saved. That is a very lofty goal, because right now our budget is $5,900, so we would round that to $6,000, and that would be $72,000. So that is not something we're going to be seeing anytime soon. Eventually, when we are in a position to start pushing more money to the emergency fund, we absolutely will be doing intermediate goals. What we'll probably do is aim for 3 months initially, which even then is still $18,000. So we'll probably break that down to a smaller goal of $6,000, each $6,000 increment. And then we'll probably break that down again to, meeting the $1,000 over and over and over again. I think it's really important to have those lofty goals that are pie in the sky, that are going to take a lot of work and a lot of time to reach. But I also think you need to have steps in between, things that are a little less lofty and a little bit more attainable, and break it down even further and make it each step down more and more likely that you'll be able to meet that goal. Because there's nothing worse than creating a goal for yourself that it just feels like you're on a treadmill and you're not getting anywhere. Even though you're working really, really hard, you're just not seeing significant enough progress. So if you're able to break it down from 72,000 down to $1,000 is still, it's not an easy save, depending on what your situation is. So that still can be a fairly lofty goal. You can break it down even more to 500, 250, to 100, whatever is going to give you the steps that you can meet and thus get that feeling of accomplishment and continue to push on. So that is one thing that I have learned about this process, is having goals that you can actually meet and see the progress that you're making is a big, big boost and can really be super motivating. Okay, motivation time is over. We are not going to fill in the job loss savings portion yet. And for the buffer rollover, because we need to finish allocating money to the items that we have budgeted first, we will not put the change portion down here yet either. So our cost for right now is just going to be the $225. So we're going to take our total income that we had left over and we're going to add $225 because that number was a negative, and that will bring us to $3,495.30. All right, for this next section, which is our cash envelopes, we had no deviations. So I am just going to go through here and relatively quickly copy the information over for these. I feel like I should have like music in the background, but I'll be honest, I'm not really that great at editing stuff, and I don't want to mess things up. So, in your mind, pretend we're on an elevator and there's some lovely smooth jazz playing. Whatever your favorite smooth jazz is. Maybe it's actually show tunes, just in smooth jazz form. I don't know. The total is still going to be the same because we didn't make any changes. Man, my handwriting really got ugly towards the end on that sucker. Okay, so we are going to again add that cost, and that brings our total to, are we still in frame? There we are. $2,829.30 of income left. Now we're going to look at debt. Now, because we did pay the Citibank card off during the first pay period, it is not part of this calculation. And though we had budgeted $800 to be paid towards Citibank as part of our standard process, only $400 of that actually ended up getting applied because we broke it up between the two pay periods. So instead of it going to that extra $400 or the leftover $400 going to Citi, it is going to our newest debt focus. And so $400 went to Reflect. As always, Discover gets paid during this particular pay period, and $250 is the standard for that. Usually, if Citibank were still around, we wouldn't put any kind of payments on Reflect during the second pay period of the month, but we are now in a different situation. So no changes to the actual budget amount for debt, $650. And again, we're not going to be figuring out any extra debt payment possibilities until we have completed all of the budget requirements. But we are going to take this total and add $650, which brings us to a total of $2,179.30. And we've got the allowance part. Again, just like last pay period, I didn't use the entirety of the $30, but again, it was change that was essentially left. So I just put that in our change jar, and we're just going to consider it as if I'd used the entire 30. Makes life easier. And I'm all about making life at least a little bit easier. Okay, so that brings our total income down to $2,149.30. And then we had budgeted our auto transfer of $100 to now go to the patio chairs. That did come out. So we have the $100 there. And the $100, you can see that down here, which brings our total, we'll do it over here too so it's easy to see, down to $2,049.30, which is amazing. And that's the most you'll probably hear me sing, because I'm not good at it. Oh, I do it all the time though. Sad for Mr. M. But yes, every car ride is a concert, whether he wants it to be or not. As is every shower. So yeah, lucky for all the people that live in my family and in my home. All right, so we are going to do the money triage that we do every single time. If you are new, this is a process that is not necessarily part of any particular method that I'm aware of. It was something that came into being once we had met the goal of saving 6 months worth of expenses for the job loss situation. And at that point, we felt comfortable shifting our focus away from heavy savings to debt. And initially, this is background for those of you who have been watching the channel, so you know most of this story. So feel free to tune out or go get something to drink. Initially, the plan was any leftover income was going to just all go to debt, but folks on the channel suggested, it can't hurt to continue to bulk up that cushion. So why not continue to put a little bit to savings? That made absolute sense. So we ended up coming up with the ratio of a 75% to 25% because we did want it still to be very heavily leaning towards that debt payoff and debt payment side of things. If you do want to implement something like this in your own budget and in your own situation, whatever percentage works best for you. Obviously, not everybody is going to be in a position to have leftover income at the end of whatever kind of pay period you use, whether you do a weekly budgeting, monthly budgeting, pay period budgeting, however it works. So if this is not something that is in your abilities at this time, don't sweat it. You have your own situation and you know what's going to work best for you. Do what you can, and maybe put in the back of your mind as something that you might want to try when situations change, and it is something that will become viable. So For this, we are going to take our 2,000, I'm going to make it not negative, $2,049.30, and we are going to subtract 75%. Move that over so you can see it, which means we will have $512 for savings. I'm going to just put a quick little X through here. Now, because we have this number now, and we also know what the cents are going to be here, we can come over to the savings section, and we will fill in the actual savings amount, which is 512, and then we'll add the 30 cents to the end of the buffer, $200.30. Okay, so next step, we're going to go back to that 2049 amount, and we're going to subtract the 512, and that is going to leave us with $1,537 for debt. Okay, so we'll just put a little bit of an X through that. Okay, so now this next part, again, this is just a weird, quirky thing that I came up with. There's no real rhyme or reason for it. It happened. But you know, don't ask me. I don't know why I came up with it in particular, but we have it. So we do have this $1,537, which is available to go to debt. But wait, there's more. We are going to triage that amount into 2 areas. The goal that I have for our main focus, which is the Reflect card, is that any payment that we are making to it should end in either $00, $25, $50, or $75. So with the $1,537, the closest is going to actually be $1,525 instead of this, which will then leave $12 for Discover. And I will say, when we've had this situation in the past, if we look at the most recent situation where we were doing Citi, and Citi was the main, we had 3 credit cards at that time. I'm always picking Discover to be that secondary triage, and the reason for that is it does have interest that gets applied. It's the only credit card that we have left that has interest. So that's why it's been the beneficiary of this process of having just a little bit of extra money when the calculations allow for it, to come to it, even though it's not the main focus debt. Hey, anything I can do to put a little bit more money towards this, while keeping the Reflect card our main focus, because it does have a 0% promo. I think that's good. Now, I will say, somebody had asked when the Reflect card's promo is going to end, and it is a ways out there. I believe it's October of next year. So that's a lot of time. And the question, now knowing that, the question might be, well, why don't you just do the Discover first and then go back to the Reflect? And really, it's because I'm paranoid. I am so paranoid about these 0% promos. Yes, that's a long ways out, but with the job situation and not knowing when that second shoe is going to drop, not knowing where things are going to land as far as the job hunt is concerned, how long it'll take me to find a job, how much of my wage that I'm making now will get replaced by the new job. There's just so many things to think about and ways for things to not go in the most positive direction, that I just feel more comfortable making sure we get this debt that has a deadline squared away as soon as possible. At the end of the day, maybe looking back, and when all is said and done, we'll say, you know what, we probably could have dealt with the Discover and then dealt with the Reflect and, saved ourselves some money because of the interest, et cetera, et cetera. But at least from where we're sitting right now, this just feels like the best option. So we do know now that we have a total of $1,537 to go towards debt. So we're going to note that right here. And that is been triaged. Let's make X's through that as a $12 payment towards Discover and a $1,525 payment to Reflect. So that's it. That's the budget. All of this has been closed out. So the transfer to savings has already been done. The payments to Discover and Reflect, those have been done. Okay. So I'd love to know what you think, if you have any feedback about that in particular. You would think that I would be super prepared. However, I am not. One moment, please. Did I sound like I was an operator? I was trying. One moment, please. Normally, the next step here would be to look at the calendar, and I would talk about, hey, here's how we use the calendar and blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to do that this time around. I feel like we go over kind of the same information, and it's not like I delve deeply into the numbers or anything in the calendar. So if that is a piece that you do like to see, let me know, and next time around we can crack it open and take a quick look through. Otherwise, I don't know that there's necessarily a benefit to anyone but myself and Mr. M for that. So that's why we're going to skip it for today. But we are going to check and see what the debt situation did this pay period. So we are going to look at where we started with our credit card debt at the beginning of the pay period and where it ended. Now the question is, can I get this without making the camera do annoying things? Or am I going to have to zoom out a little bit because this is all slidey? Okay, we'll see. We'll see how this goes. It's a little awkward, but we're going to work with it. Work with me, people. Okay, so at the beginning of the pay period, Citi, because it got paid off during the first pay period, was at zeros. We've got zeros all the way across. Next is Discover, and it was at $97.49 and 57 cents. And at the end of the pay period, it was at $9,649 and 62 cents, or a reduction of $99 and 95 cents. The Reflect card started out the pay period at $12,270 and ended the pay period at $10,345, or a reduction of $1,925. So if we're looking at the overall debt situation, we started out with $22,019.57 at the beginning of this pay period. We ended with $19,994.62, which was a reduction of $20,024.95. Okay, now we're going to look at this same situation, but look at it from a more holistic view, starting with the beginning of the month. So this is going to be reduction, full month reduction for the debt. So Citi at the beginning of June still had a balance of $1,250. At the end of June, it was at zero, so that was a reduction of $1,250. I'm going to slide this down. Discover at the beginning of June was at $9,757.57 and dropped to the same number up here, $9,649.62, which actually ended up being a total reduction for the month of $107.95. And then the Reflect card We started the month with a balance of $12,770, and we ended the month, as mentioned up here, at $10,345, which was a total reduction of $2,425 for that particular debt. And the overall view was we started the month with $23,777.57 of credit card debt. We ended the month with $19,994.62 of credit card debt, and we realized a reduction over the course of the month of $3,782.95. That is amazing. Now, I will say I was a little bit disappointed that we did not break the $10,000 mark on the Reflect card. I am super, super excited about the progress we have made, and because we know, especially if you watch the budget with me, that the new payment, because of our debt snowball process for Reflect, is $488 each pay period. So when that first payment comes through, we will be breaking that $10,000 mark, and that is going to be very, very exciting for us. Now, that said, we also did meet a goal that I am excited about. We were able to bring our total credit card debt down under $20,000. Yes, it only may be by $5.38, but by golly, that is a very important $5.38. I don't know about other people, but for me, there is an absolute psychological boost. You get that serotonin, endorphins, and just that good feeling of seeing that debt drop. It has come down to a new level, and so it is very motivating. It's definitely I see it as a milestone met, and it just reminds me that we need to just keep on doing what we're doing as best as we can, regardless of what situation we're in, whether it's the job is still going on or the job has been lost. We just need to not lose focus because we are making progress. So very happy to see that. Now, speaking of the job, as of June 30th, the job loss cushion. All right, so we'll just put this right here. So the expectation right now, based on the current PTO balance I have, which is lighter by 8 hours than it was before, and that is because I did take a day for my birthday celebration and to go to the coast, which I know we're running a little bit long here, but it was beautiful. Oh my gosh. It was like the perfect day at the coast. Sometimes you get, beautiful blue skies and the sun is out, but if you go onto the beach, oh boy, it is windy and it's not necessarily fun, but it was gorgeous out. Perfect, just perfect. We ended up going into Tillamook, which we didn't stop at the cheese factory because we've been there about 1 billion times, but Mr. M did stop at his favorite brewery and got himself some beers, or some, I'm assuming that they were beers. We did stop at a place called Clay Myers, I believe. It's like a campground and a little nature area. We had been there before, but it was like raining, so we did not do the hike, but we had noted it down because we wanted to try it out. So we did do that this time, and I am so glad we did. The hike, part of it was kind of miserable because it was very warm, and it wasn't a forest environment, but the sun definitely made its way through. The air was kind of still in that first part, and there were these bugs that just would not leave us alone. But we got to this part where you kind of round the bend, you go up a little bit of an incline, and then you can see the sand, you can see the sea. It was so beautiful. There was an area you could just kind of walk to where the sand was and just enjoy this wonderful sea breeze. So just the perfect mix of sun, sand, wind, everything, and being out in nature. And the hike itself wasn't very difficult either, which I very much appreciate. I was laughing because I was like, man, maybe I should have worn shorts. And then I realized if I had, the bugs would have eaten me alive. Yeah, it was definitely worth using up 8 hours of overtime, of PTO in order to get that mental health break, and just have time to enjoy, not think about work, not think about, all of the things that had been stressing me out. It was great. So that said, it did have an impact on what we would be expecting to receive at the end of this adventure if I were to lose my job tomorrow, and that would be $6,161 for the severance. The expectation with my calculations is $4,364. Now, there are asterisks on this because while I can go and say, okay, we're looking at X number of hours and my per hour rate is Y, that math is easy. I did have to kind of come up with my own percentage reduction of what I thought we would see for taxes, Social Security, all the things that they normally take out of a paycheck. And I could very well have underestimated the percentage that it should be, and thus this could be over what we'll actually receive. It could be that I overestimated how much would come out for taxes, etc., and we might see this increase. What we do know the exact number is this $12,732.99. This is the culmination of us socking money away every pay period, both when the savings piece was the 100% goal until we made the 6-month mark, as well as the continued 25% that we are putting towards savings. So this is tangible, it is in the bank right now, whereas this could fluctuate. But if we go with these numbers, we're looking at $23,257.99 as what our current cushion would be as of June 30th. Now, we spoke about it just a little bit before, and our current budget, and this is the budget that we will be following once the job goes away as well, is $5,900. Mr. M's pay will cover $3,800 of it at minimum, at least as far as we're figuring. So there's still $2,100 that would be a gap in our income. So that's what we're using to do our calculation. So if you divide $23,257.99 by $2,100, we currently have 11 months worth of savings. That's the time that I will have to be able to find a new job, one that will be suitable and allow us to continue to work this budget. Preferably, it'll be something that is not at the very minimum that I need to earn for us to be able to fulfill this budget. Hopefully there'll be a few dollars more than that so that we can continue to have at least a little bit of extra to go towards debt, because we are still going to want to be reducing our debt even in the face of the job loss. But at this point, we are anticipating we'll have 11 months worth of coverage. Now, the only thing that is not being included in here is unemployment. I do plan on filing for unemployment. I do expect to be eligible for unemployment, but I don't feel comfortable in speculating how much I might get per week for unemployment. My job wage has changed multiple times in the last year and a half, and I know they do some kind of averaging, and then And then it's like some percentage of that average is what your weekly pay would be. I do have an Etsy shop. I believe I have to claim any income that I get from that, and that could affect what gets paid out to me. If we happen to get to 1,000 subscribers and to a point where we are able to monetize the channel, which we have decided if we get to that level, we will monetize it, because it'll be any income that comes in will be able to help us reduce our debt. But we would have to, of course, be cognizant of that as well. We would have to let them know about that income, which would potentially affect, how much money each week we would get as well. So not in a position to really be able to say one way or another how much we're going to get. And so for our purposes, we just figured, let's just focus on what we can mostly control, which is how many days I take off work. The severance package is what the severance package is. And then, of course, what we are socking away. Anything that we get from unemployment, we can then consider as extra money. And it will be at that point that we can kind of make the decision. Are we going to use that to act as if it's extra unallocated money at the end of the pay period that we have here, just to a lesser amount, and then have that all go towards debt? Will we just want to tack it into the bucket and presumably extend the amount of time that I am able to look for a job in case, it does take a while? Do we want to triage it and have it go to numerous issues or areas, some to debt, some to savings, maybe some to some of our longer term savings goals? Do we want to use it to try and fully fund some of our cash envelopes? There's a lot of opportunities and options there. We'll have to kind of wait and see what we'll be working with before we make any actual decisions, though. All right, so last but not least, the job front itself. I have received no new information. So the expectation of where we have been of we will be working at least through the end of July is where it stands. I haven't heard anything about us extending into August. Typically, that type of information has come about the second week of the month prior, so maybe sometime next week is when I will hear from my boss about kind of what the plans are. Obviously, I am hoping to ride this train as long as possible because the more money that I can bring in, the quicker we can bring our debt down and the longer we can continue to extend that cushion. And I want to take advantage of that for as long as possible. If we could get to a point where we are able to clear the reflect card, I feel like that would be miraculous. But I do feel like it might be doable if I work through September. I've mentioned this before. The numbers that I've run, it's like really tenuous and things just kind of have to go right for that to happen. And of course, the biggest piece would be I would need to retain my job through that time period. But it could happen. It could happen. So that would just be amazing. Absolutely amazing. We'll see. We will have to wait and see what the world and what life and everything brings. And you know what? I am not a patient person. I hate waiting. There are two things I am really not fond of as a general rule in things. There's many things that I'm not fond of, but for the purposes of this conversation, there's two things. I hate waiting, and and I hate surprises. If there is a surprise, I want to know what it is before the surprise. I am happy to act surprised. I don't like not knowing things. That's one of the things where I'm like, you know what? If technology gets to the point where you can become a cyborg, I might sign up for it because I want to know what comes next. I'm not ready to leave this earth. I want to see, how do we evolve? What discoveries are made? Do aliens come? Do we find something in the Mariana Trench that we didn't actually expect to see? There's so much stuff that goes on and you don't know. I would love to spend, hundreds of years and learn as many languages as possible. I don't have the time to do it right now, but as a cyborg, maybe I would. I don't know. That's probably weird. But if there's one thing that I will admit to, I am a weird person. I don't care. If that's a problem for anybody, I'm sorry, but that is just who I am. I'm definitely a bona fide weirdo. So on that note, I am clearly needing to go to sleep. It is sometime after midnight. My watch died. You can see it needs to be charged. I need some ice cream and then I need to go to bed. So thank you so much for watching. As always, if you have any feedback, questions, suggestions, things like that, please note them below. If there's something that you've wondered about, or if there's something that you don't feel I have covered during these kinds of videos and you have a question about it or you would like some more info, note that below. At the very least, I will try and get you an answer and, reply in the comment section. But depending on what that question is or, the basis of the conversation, it might be something that I would include in a video as well, just in case other people have a similar inquiry. So there we are. Please consider subscribing if you haven't already. And of course, definitely appreciate when you like and of course comment. Thank you again for taking the time to watch. I will see you in the next one.